Have you ever caught yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a text that might never come? Have you ever rewritten a message 5 times, deleted it, rewrote it again, and then thrown your phone across the bed because you felt so ridiculous? Have you ever felt that sickening pull in your chest every time someone you like just goes quiet on you? If you nodded yes to even one of those questions, I need you to listen to me very carefully, because what you're about to hear might save you months of emotional torture, maybe even years. There is a specific kind of pain that comes from wanting someone who cannot give themselves to you. It is not like a normal breakup. It is not like losing someone who simply chose someone else. No. This pain is different. This pain lives in the gray area, the place where they were warm one day and cold the next, the place where they said something that made you feel seen and then disappeared for 3 days like it never happened. This pain has a name. And the name is chasing someone who was never running toward you in the first place. Here is what nobody tells you. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not asking for too much. The reason you feel so emotionally exhausted right now is because you have been running on a treadmill that never stops. You keep moving your legs, you keep sweating, you keep pushing, but you are not going anywhere. And the cruelest part is that the more you run, the more exhausted you become. The more exhausted you become, the more desperate you feel. And the more desperate you feel, the less attractive you become. Not to them, to yourself. Let me explain what is actually happening inside your brain right now. When someone you care about gives you mixed signals, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. That is the same chemical that gets released when you win something, when you eat something sweet, when you gamble. It is the chemical of anticipation, and your brain becomes addicted to it. Not because the reward is great, but because the reward is unpredictable. That is the psychology of almost. That is the trap. You are not addicted to them. You are addicted to the uncertainty, the maybe, the almost. Here is another thing you need to hear. Every time you send that next text, every time you double text after they went silent, every time you check if they viewed your message for the 5th time in 1 hour, you are not showing them how much you care. You are showing them that you have forgotten how to care for yourself. And they can feel it, even if they cannot explain it. And that is exactly why they pull back even further. Not because they do not like you, but because your energy is screaming at them that something inside you is broken. And nobody wants to be the person who fixes someone else. Not in the long run. Not really. Think about this. When you were at your happiest, at your most centered, at your most at peace, who were you attracting? Probably people who matched that energy. People who felt safe to be around. People who leaned in instead of pulling away. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that way? Probably not recently. Because right now your entire emotional world is revolving around one person who cannot give you what you need. And that is not love. That is a slow bleed. That is you pouring your life into a cup with a hole in the bottom. You need to understand something powerful. The distance they show you is not about you. It is about them. An avoidant person does not run because you are not enough. They run because your closeness activates a fear they do not even understand yet. It is not rejection. It is protection. Their protection. But here's the problem. You cannot fix that. You cannot love them hard enough to make that fear disappear. You cannot explain yourself into their safety. You can only keep showing up as yourself and watch them keep walking away. And that is not something you should take personally. It is something you should take as information. The most painful truth I can give you right now is this. Every single text you send to someone who keeps going quiet is a piece of your self-respect being handed over for free. You are paying the price. They are not. And the more you pay, the more you lose sight of your own worth. Because worth is not something someone gives you. Worth is something you protect. And right now, you are not protecting it. You are handing it over to someone who does not even know they are taking it. So here's your reward for staying with me until this moment. In the next section, I am going to show you exactly why chasing never works. Not from a place of theory, from a place of deep psychological truth. I am going to show you what is really happening in the mind of the person you are chasing. And more importantly, I am going to show you what you can do right now to stop destroying yourself over someone who was never built to catch you. Stay with me. This is just the beginning. And the beginning is where you decide that you are worth more than the silence they keep leaving you in. Why does the person you want the most always feel the farthest away? Why does your love feel like a burden to them when it feels so natural to you? Why does your heart keep reaching when their hands stay closed? You have asked yourself these questions 1,000 times, and every single time you came up with the same answer. You must try harder. You must be more patient. You must love them better. But what if that is exactly the mistake? What if every single thing you thought was the right move has been making everything worse? Here is what is really happening inside their head. When you chase someone who is emotionally avoidant, you are not breaking down their walls. You are building them higher. Every text you send that says, "I miss you," every message where you explain yourself, hoping they will understand, every late-night conversation where you pour your heart out, trying to connect, your brain interprets all of this as a threat. Not because you are dangerous, but because closeness feels dangerous to them. And the more you push, the more their nervous system tells them to protect themselves. So they pull. You push. They pull harder. And the cycle continues until you are standing alone wondering what went wrong. But it did not go wrong because you were not enough. It went wrong because you were trying to fix something inside them that only they can fix. You are not a therapist. You are not their healing journey. You are a person who loved someone who was not ready to be loved back, and that is not your fault. That is just the truth. Think about it this way. Imagine you are standing on the edge of a cliff, and someone keeps walking toward you saying, "Do not be scared. I will catch you. Trust me." But in your mind, the cliff is the only place that has ever felt safe, because the cliff means nobody can push you off. Nobody can get close enough to hurt you. And the more they try to reach for you, the more your brain tells you to step back. That is what happens inside an avoidant person every single time you chase them. Your love feels like an invasion, not because it is bad, but because their armor was built for survival. Now let me tell you something that might hurt a little. The reason you keep chasing is not because of them, it is because of you. Somewhere along the way you learned that love is something you earn. That if you just try hard enough, if you just prove yourself enough, if you just give enough, then the person will finally see your worth. But that is not how real love works. Real love does not have to be chased. Real love moves toward you. It does not make you beg for scraps. It does not leave you guessing. It does not feel like a test you keep failing. When you pour yourself out for someone who keeps walking away, you are not showing them how much you care. You are showing yourself that you do not believe you deserve someone who stays, and that is the wound you are actually trying to heal. Not by winning them over, but by finally looking in the mirror and asking yourself why you keep accepting half of what you are worth. Here is the part that nobody talks about. The person you are chasing is not feeling what you think they are feeling. You imagine that when you send that long message, when you explain your heart out, when you tell them how much they mean to you, they are moved by it. They are not. They are overwhelmed by it. They are suffocated by it. And the more you give, the more pressure they feel to give something back. And when they cannot give it, they do not feel guilty. They feel annoyed. And that is the moment they start to see you as the problem instead of the solution. You see, your pursuit is feeding their fear. Every time you reach out after they pulled away, you are telling their subconscious that you will not leave no matter how cold they get. And that removes the only pressure that might have made them reflect on their own behavior. You have made it too easy for them to stay exactly who they are. And they will, because they can. There is a psychological truth here that nobody wants to hear. You cannot heal someone who does not know they are broken. You cannot fix someone who thinks you are the problem. And you cannot love someone into safety when they have built their entire identity around keeping everyone at a distance. Your heart is not a key that opens every door. Sometimes the door is locked from the inside. And that lock was not put there because of you. It was put there long before you ever showed up. So what does that mean for you? It means the strongest thing you can do right now is nothing. The strongest thing you can do is stop explaining yourself to someone who does not have the capacity to hear it. The strongest thing you can do is give yourself permission to stop bleeding for someone who does not even know they are cutting you, because you are not weak for walking away. You are not giving up. You are finally choosing yourself over the fantasy of who you thought they could be. And that is not a loss. That is the beginning of everything you have been looking for. Here is what happens the moment you decide to stop. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now. The moment you put your phone down and choose not to send that text, something inside your nervous system begins to settle. That constant state of alertness, that standing by waiting, that exhausting loop of checking and rechecking, it starts to quiet down. And you finally get to breathe. Not because anything changed with them, but because something changed with you. But here is the part that matters most. You do not shift by pretending to be okay. You do not shift by telling yourself you do not care while your chest is still aching. You shift by genuinely reclaiming the energy you have been handing out for free. Every single day you spent watching your phone, rewriting messages, waiting for a reply, that was your energy. That was your time. That was your life. And you gave it away to someone who did not even notice. The shift happens when you take all of that back. Not to make them come back, not to play a game, but because you finally understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and yours has been empty for a long time. Now, I want you to understand something that most people miss completely. When you stop chasing, something inside you changes, not just emotionally, energetically. You go from being the person who is always reaching, always explaining, always trying to prove something, to being the person who is simply living. You start focusing on your work again. You start showing up for your friends again. You start remembering what it felt like before this person took up all the space inside your head. And that version of you, the one who is whole and centered and at peace, that version is not just more attractive to everyone around you. That version is more attractive to them too. And here is why. When you pull back, you create space. And in that space, something happens that surprises them. They start to feel your absence, not because they miss you in some dramatic, romantic way, but because the constant pressure of your attention suddenly disappeared, and their nervous system, which has been guarded against closeness, has no threat to defend against anymore. And that void, that quiet space where your pursuit used to be, it gets filled with something unexpected, reflection. And in that reflection, they have to sit with themselves. They have to feel what it is like to be the one who is not being chased. And that is a very uncomfortable place for someone who has been avoiding connection their whole life. Because the moment they feel like they might lose you for real, the fear of losing something becomes stronger than the fear of closeness. And that is when something shifts in them. But here is the catch. That shift only works if your letting go is real. If you are walking away while secretly hoping they will notice and come running back, nothing changes. Because they can feel that energy. They can sense when your distance is genuine versus when it is a strategy. But if you let go, because you finally chose yourself, because you genuinely decided that your peace matters more than their silence, then your energy becomes powerful. Because it is clean, it is grounded, it is not coming from a place of need, it is coming from a place of self-respect. And that energy is something that even the most avoidant person cannot ignore. Not because it manipulates them, but because it shows them what real strength looks like. The shift is not about making them regret leaving. The shift is about becoming the version of yourself that does not need them to stay. It is about standing in your own worth so firmly that when someone pulls away, you do not collapse, you do not chase, you do not beg. You simply say to yourself, I know what I bring to the table, and if you cannot see that, you are not the person I thought you were. And I am okay walking away with my head held high. Here is what that kind of freedom feels like. It feels like no longer caring whether they saw your story. It feels like no longer replaying every message, wondering what you did wrong. It feels like no longer measuring your worth by whether someone chose to respond. It feels like choosing yourself on purpose, not because you do not have feelings, not because you do not care, but because you finally understand that your emotional health is not worth trading for someone who could not even give you the basic respect of a reply. And when you get there, something beautiful happens. You stop attracting people who run from closeness, not because you changed what you are looking for, but because you changed what you are projecting. A person who knows their worth does not chase. A person who knows their worth walks toward people who are glad to walk toward them. And that is the shift. That is the moment your life changes. Not because they came back, but because you finally stopped needing them to. Now let us talk about the part that nobody wants to face. Why do you keep ending up with people who cannot meet you where you are? Why does this pattern repeat? And what is it trying to teach you? Because here's the truth nobody talks about. You do not attract avoidance by accident. You attract them because somewhere inside you, there is a part that feels familiar around distance. A part that thinks love has to be earned. A part that believes if you just stay long enough, love hard enough, suffer silently enough, the other person will finally choose you. And that belief is not love. That belief is survival, and it comes from somewhere deep in your history that you have not fully looked at yet. Maybe as a child you learned that love was conditional. Maybe you learned that your needs were too much for the people around you. Maybe you learned that if you just made yourself small enough, quiet enough, easy enough, you would finally be accepted. And that lesson stayed with you. It shaped the kind of love you go looking for. It shaped the kind of treatment you tolerate. And it shaped the kind of person who feels safe to you. Not because they are good for you, but because they match the wound you have not healed yet. That is a hard thing to hear. But it is also the most powerful thing you can know, because once you understand that you are not a victim of your love life, you become the creator of it. And that changes everything. Here's what you do now. You get honest with yourself, not just about what you want from a partner, but about what you will not accept. What is the minimum standard of how someone treats you? What is the minimum level of emotional availability, consistency, and presence that you deserve? Write it down, say it out loud, and then make a decision right now that you will never accept anything less than that. Not because you are trying to control someone else, but because you refuse to shrink yourself down to fit inside someone else's fear. You have to stop abandoning yourself in relationships. You have to stop making someone else the center of your emotional world while your own life falls apart around you. You have to stop saying